Sandy says read. Welcome to the channel. I was going to film a different video this afternoon, but a thunderstorm rolled in, and it is the perfect opportunity to talk about Wuthering Heights. It's wonderful. I was going to film this video tomorrow on Emily Bronte's actual birthday. No, right now is perfect. The thunderstorm is really going out there, so we'll probably lose the connection and I'll have to film later. That's okay, I don't mind. We got the beginning, we've got some thunder rolling, you might even see some lightning flashes. It'll be great. Okay, as you know, for Emily's birthday, I planned to read several Emily Bronte related books for the month of July, specifically toward the end of July. And I did that, but I want to begin talking about Wuthering Heights specifically because the weather just worked out perfectly. The actual book that I read or reread was this one, this version of Wuthering Heights, because if I broke the spine, I didn't mind. If I made notes in it, I didn't mind.
Hey guys, this is Future Editing Sandy, and I'm just popping in the middle of this video to tell you that I forgot to do a review of Wuthering Heights. I guess I didn't really think that I needed to. I just didn't think of it. If you guys need a review of Wuthering Heights, I am happy to do so because it's an awesome book. Even though the characters are kind of flawed, and that's putting it mildly, I can do a review of Wuthering Heights, not a problem.
Okay, the first gorgeous copy is this leather-bound copy. See how beautiful that is? It's this lovely green with purple on it. Of course I was attracted to that. The pages have the purple spray on them. Isn't that nice? And even the end papers inside are pretty. See that? It's just a pretty copy. It's got, a nice quote on the back. It's flimsy enough that, I think I could read it without breaking the spine. The next pretty copy that I have to show you is from the Franklin Library. See, it's just a hardcover, blue. It looks very simplistic, doesn't it, on the front? But it's very pretty. See, it's got the gold lettering on the side. It also has the gold spray on the pages. See? And it has these really pretty illustrations in it. I'll show you. See? There's some nice illustrations in there that have been done. The illustrator was Alan Reingold. Let me look. Hold on. Isn't the thunder perfect for this? Here we go. Yes, illustrated by Alan Reingold. The next version of Wuthering Heights that I want to show you is this cute little board book for children. How cute is this? And this book is teaching kids about the weather. It's just a few pages. Let's see if I can get it open. It tells you, Wuthering Heights is the name of, Heathcliff's house. And then it talks about breezy weather. There's a page in here for stormy. Sunny. That didn't happen a lot. Cloudy. Oh, stormy. There it is. For stormy weather. Isn't that nice? They're pretty. But just cute little illustrations for kids and talking about different, weather phenomena. But it's just a cute little book. I thought it was clever. I grabbed it. One of the things I thought we might talk about in the comment field below is that Emily was rumored to have written another book. Seriously, that she supposedly wrote another manuscript and burned it in a fire. She threw it into the fireplace and burned it up. And that horrifies me. Imagine what our literature would be like if she had published it. Think on that. I mentioned during my July TBR that I would be reading Heathcliff, A Return to Wuthering Heights. This was by Lynn Hare Sargent. I had put off reading this book for over a decade. It's been on my shelves for well over a decade. And I had put it off because I just felt that it might be a little blasphemous to dig into this book. And I'm sorry that I put it off for so long. I read this and I really enjoyed it. But I read it in the vein of understanding that it's not canon, understanding that it's someone else's almost fan fiction, you might call it, okay? But I went into it with that view, and therefore I really enjoyed it. I did have fun with it, okay? Heathcliff, the character, is still deplorable. But what's interesting is that this book sort of blends Heathcliff and, get ready for it, Rochester. Yeah, this book starts out with Lockwood meeting Charlotte Bronte on a train. And those two strike up a conversation. Lockwood has this folder that he has received from Nelly Dean. It is after the events of Wuthering Heights, and Lockwood is on his way back to meet with Nelly Dean. And I think she's on her deathbed. I don't remember exactly. And I just read it, and yet I don't remember. Sorry. But he's going back to Wuthering Heights, hence return. He's going back to Wuthering Heights. He's, sharing the folder that he has with Charlotte on the train. She's reading through the information and she's making an impression for herself. He's asked for her impressions. He's asked for her opinion on what Nelly Dean has done. It's just intriguing. And so they've got that, Lynn has got that set of narrators distancing themselves from the story, the way Emily did in Wuthering Heights. So I found that intriguing, a neat narrative concept that Lynn kept in place. She kept Heathcliff as this deplorable character. She made Rochester interesting, and I don't want to give away too much more, because even though, having Rochester show up was intriguing enough, I don't want to give away too much more, because I would recommend this. I would recommend this as a fun read. Don't go into it thinking that this is going to give answers to questions. It's not canonical. It is just for fun, but it was fun. I enjoyed it. Beware, Heathcliff is just as despicable as he is in Wuthering Heights. He does meet up with, I'm not going to say anymore. You know what? If you want more information, let's talk about it in the comments below, because I don't want to give away too much. He is just deplorable, but deliciously so. Okay, let me just say that. It's an interesting book. Another book I picked up that was not on the July TBR, but fit right into my Emily Bronte reading, was this one, A Return to Wuthering Heights, Nelly Dean, by Allison Case. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this one. I was surprised that it was out there. I didn't know it existed, but I just ran into it and went, oh my gosh, I will add this to the pile. And I'm so glad that I did. I enjoyed it. It stays within the Wuthering Heights timeline, whereas Heathcliff took place, after, several years after the Wuthering Heights timeline. This one takes place during the story. It's everything told from Nelly Dean's point of view. We really dive into how the housekeeper reacted to things, and we dive into her love life or lack thereof. We look at how she was responsible for taking care of Hareton after he was born, and we really dwell on that an awful lot. There were some moments that were a little bit uncomfortable, because they dwelled so much on the physical nursing of Hareton. But, that's a fact of life, and you gotta move on. But it was an interesting story and an interesting take on how Nelly may or may not have been romantically involved with people at the Earnshaw estate. It was interesting. I went into it the same way I did with Heathcliff. I went into it with the feeling of, okay, this is not canonical. This is someone's fan fiction, so to speak. This is someone's opinion and someone's take on things. And so I went into it with that feeling of, okay, this is for fun. And it was fun. Okay, I went into it with that feeling of, this is someone taking the characters and playing with them but she did a really good job. Allison did a wonderful job of staying in their language, staying in their moods, keeping that darkness, and just she really did a nice job of it. I was pleased with it. I'm glad that I picked it up. I'm glad I read it. I would recommend it to anyone who is a fan of the Brontes, as long as you keep in mind it's for fun. You know, it's not. Another book that was on the TBR pile for July was the Belgian essays. In 1842, both Charlotte and Emily went over to Brussels to study. There's a lot of controversy around that, but they went over to Brussels to study under a gentleman by the name of Monsieur Heger, whatever you want to call him, Heger. He assigned essays for the girls to write, and what he would do basically was dictate a story, dictate information, and then expect all the ladies in his class to write an essay based on what he had dictated. He also had them write letters based on what he had dictated. He would have them write portraits of characters in history based on what he had dictated. All right, so both Charlotte and Emily participated in these exercises, and then Monsieur Heger would mark up and edit what they had written and had them rewrite it. And then he would mark it up again and again and again and again. He was quite the perfectionist, and Charlotte worked really hard to gain his approval. Okay? And I'm going to leave it at that and not talk about that anymore. But Emily and Monsieur Heger did not get on well together. Emily sort of struggled against his authority, so to speak. So, you know, she was a clever woman, okay? Emily had, I think she had a sardonic sort of sense of humor. I'm not sure. But let's look first. I started with this portrait, but let's look at this letter that she had to write and the response that she had to write. It was one of its, Madame, tomorrow there will be a small musical party at our house, to which I am directed to invite you. The execution of that order gives me great pleasure, because I can assure you that the pieces are well chosen, that most of the musicians are skillful, and therefore that you will spend some pleasant hours here. Beyond the pleasure of seeing you, your friends expect from your hands a contribution to the evening's amusements. Thus I hope that you will not refuse to come, since that would be a deprivation, both for you and for them. I am, Madam, your respectful student, Emily Bronte. Okay. And then she had to supply a reply as well. And the reply goes, Dear Miss, it would have been, in truth, a great pleasure for me had I been able to accept your invitation, but in a life like mine, our inclination cannot always be followed, and unfortunately the day of your party is, of all the days of my week, the busiest. Thus I find myself obliged to give up the pleasure of seeing my friends and of contributing whatever I could to their amusement. But when I suffer a disappointment, I ordinarily seek some compensation in return, and at present I console myself with the thought that if I am denied the opportunity to exhibit my small talent, at least I will not undergo the mortification of witnessing the poor results of my work with you, because I have heard that you are to play a piece on this occasion, and forgive me if I advise you, out of pure friendship, to choose a time when everyone is occupied with something other than music, for I fear that your performance will be a little too remarkable. Still, I would not want to discourage you. Good day, and good luck with all my heart. But A, Emily didn't want to be doing this assignment, and B, she's got quite the sense of humor there. She's a naughty little thing. Oh, I enjoyed it. I thought she did a great job with that. Of course, then, you know, Monsieur marked it up and did whatever. But the portrait that she had to do for King Harold before the battle at Hastings, brilliant. I mean, her writing in here, her style, the way she describes things, the take she had on this assignment was lovely. I mean, she's a good writer. I mean, even if she, well, of course she was. I mean, even if she was dark, you know, Wuthering Heights was dark, and it was, you know, everyone in that book was just a character that had flaws and issues and so much deep-seated hate. Many of the characters had this deep-seated hate and angst and frustration and wanted revenge. But Emily wrote them so well that we hate them, that we see their need for revenge, that we see this stuff in them, and we don't like... Well, I don't know very many people who really love Heathcliff, let me tell you. Emily was awesome. Awesome. You guys may know that Emily and Anne worked on stories in their made-up town of Gondal when they were children, and Emily carried those stories with her into adulthood. Even when she was over at the pensionnat in Brussels, she still had those stories in her brain. She still had those characters with her. And anyone who is a writer, you know how those characters stay with you. And she had some of those characters with her in her brain when she was in Brussels, and then when she returned to Haworth, she continued writing about those characters. So some of the poetry is written from the point of view of some of those characters, and some of the poetry is written for some of those characters. I mean, it's interesting, the intricacies of her poetry. She was an excellent poet. If you have only read Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, I recommend that you pick up her poetry. There are volumes of poetry that combine all three of the Bronte sisters. That would be great too, whatever you can. So in talking about Emily's poetry, I mentioned her Juvenilia, pretty much. She and Anne wrote stories together when they were younger, and then Branwell and Charlotte wrote stories together. But the four of them did come to the idea of putting together stories, sort of together. All four of them came to that idea together. I think it was Charlotte. It was either Charlotte or Branwell whose idea for the Islanders. Hold on, I can tell you exactly how it happened because I got a book right here that tells me so. Here's how it happened. This is the Brontes, Tales of Glasstown, Angria, and Gondal, Selected Writings. Right. And do I need to explain? Glasstown, Angria, and Gondal, those were the towns that the kids made up. The kids, the literary geniuses. All right, the origin of the Islanders. Here it is. The origin of the Islanders was as follows. It was one wet night in December. We were all sitting round the fire and had been silent some time. And at last I said, suppose we each had an island of our own. Branwell chose the Isle of Man. Emily, Isle of Arran and Bute Isle. Anne, Jersey. And I chose the Isle of Wight. And then they chose who would live in their islands, and they made up characters to live in these islands, and they created a whole mess of characters and stories and like soap opera plots. I mean, it was amazing what these kids did, the four of them. Branwell had these little toy soldiers that his father had given him, so they took these toy soldiers and moved them around and made characters for each one of them. Those kids had great imaginations. So talking about Emily sort of kind of led into talking about all the Bronte kids. Well, those that survived childhood. So, you guys comment below your favorite Bronte stories, your favorite Bronte stuff, things that you remember from Wuthering Heights, or if you've read it a lot, let's talk about Wuthering Heights. Let's talk about Heathcliff. Let's talk about, the return to Wuthering Heights in the two books that I mentioned. Anything you want to talk about Emily Bronte is fair game, Emily, because it's her birthday and we need to celebrate that. So, happy birthday, Emily. Thank you for writing Wuthering Heights. Thank you for all the Juvenilia that you came up with. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and happy birthday. And hey, all you folks out there watching, please subscribe, and thank you very much.